I'm not sure if you're familiar with the movie Eat, Pray, Love, but I am about to quote a line from the movie. I know there's opinions, I have my opinions, but it just made sense and I related to what Katit said. So in the movie, Elizabeth Gilbert goes to see the medicine man, Katit, and she's in the midst of falling in love with someone, and she feels like she's kind of losing balance in her life because she's falling in love. And Katit says to her, to lose balance sometimes for love is part of living a balanced life. Okay, now, I'm not talking about romantic love, but the quote and that scene in the movie stuck to me as I was reflecting on my life and my travels, and that idea of balance kept coming up. The way I created this little mini series, it stemmed from my journals. I am someone who likes to journal every morning. I'm not always consistent, but in the midst of my kind of identity crisis, if you haven't seen chapter 1, that's what I'm referring to, and later part of 2021 of that turmoil, I kept writing certain things and playing around with certain ideas that kept coming up and up and up. The way these videos were created were from these ideas and these themes that were coming through when I was talking to people, thinking about certain things, reflecting, and writing. The overall theme that I kept thinking about was balance, but the two things I kept writing about were redefining travel and this idea of home and how that all plays into balance in my life. And I'll get to the other two and explain a little bit more what that means, redefining travel, home. When I was thinking about this idea balance, and ironically enough, I am wearing this shirt. I did not plan this. And I kept thinking about this idea of balance and what does balance look like? How does that feel like for me? And I had this image in my mind of a pie chart. And if I had to divide that pie chart, what would that look like? Before kind of this 2021 identity crisis, I would say that my pie chart was 90 to 95% travel, and that 5 to 10% was everything else. Like I mentioned, I aligned my life with travel, whether that was researching, reading, applying to programs, preparing, packing, saving money, whatever. It revolved around travel. That was always the idea, the point, the goal. How can I have these experiences? And what could I do to get to that place? Now, the person I am today, that person after all of that reflection, looking at my pie chart of the person that I kind of was before, and does that pie chart of that 90-95% travel work for the person that I am today? I enjoyed my adventures, and even though it was very much imbalanced, for me it was perfectly fine and it worked. But now the person that I am today, and I kind of look at my life, that pie chart does not work with who I'm becoming, who I want to be, my goals, my dreams, my vision for my life. It doesn't necessarily fit into that. And so now I kind of look at this blank circle and try to figure out, what are the things that are important to me? What are the things that are new now in my life that I'm implementing, or new goals and dreams, and what percentage and piece of the pie does it take? Back to the Eat, Pray, Love quote, a big thing was sometimes to have that overall balance, you have to have that overall balance in your life, you have to give and take a little bit other areas and from other things to kind of have that overall balanced life that I think everybody is looking for. And this idea of balance really came to me from my travels. I have been lucky enough to have traveled to different countries with different cultures that value different things. And so being an observer and seeing how people live their day-to-day life and seeing what they value and what they appreciate has impacted me. And so I really looked at all of my travels and what I have learned and how people in their culture and in their communities have their balance. What does that look like for them? And then how can I implement that in my own life? Because I felt very much imbalanced. And if I try to be that same person or use that same pie chart for the person that I am now, it would just create more imbalance. One of the big themes that I wrote about a lot, and that carries from the previous video, and actually a friend of mine who watched my video, thank you friends, some follow-up questions. And these follow-up questions actually were really helpful for me to kind of help me reframe and kind of structure how I wanted this video and what I wanted to talk about. All right, it's gone. So she didn't understand how I didn't love to travel anymore. And I could see definitely how that there was some confusion. And just to kind of answer that question, the way I used to travel, whether it was a short or a long trip or living abroad, I was always looking for that next thing, having that experience, creating a list, even if it was to get to know the people and the culture. It was very much fast, really without thinking about it, in the sense of what was my intention, what did I want to really get from the experience, and having this experience and then reflecting about it later, as opposed to really being in the moment. And that way of travel and how I used to no longer excites me. I have no interest in creating a list of the countries that I need to go visit, because if I'm living in this one country, I need to see all the countries surrounding it, and I have this experience and that experience and stuff. Of course, you know, you have your ideas and certain things that are maybe like, you know, a non-negotiable that you want to experience. The way I used to travel is no longer how I want to travel. Follow up to that was, you want to live abroad? And the answer to that is yes, I do want to live abroad. But the way I was looking at living abroad was that maybe every year or every 2 years, I was gonna go to another place and have, you know, an experience. If you do that, kudos to you, but for me it just seemed so exhausting. I actually even made a little like mini trailer that I was going to do this, like I'm set off on this adventure every year to live in a new place and have this experience, and I never published it because insane. Like I cannot do that. I'm not in a point in my life where I want to even do that. What happened is November, in the midst of my identity crisis, I did start this volunteer position at a non-for-profit Rise Travel Institute as a social media coordinator and content producer. Their goal, their mission is to create a community and inspire travelers to be more responsible, impactful, mindful, ethical, thoughtful, sustainable through education. The organization has a 10-week course. They also have short courses on different destinations, and just being in that space of people who are in the travel and tourism industry but focus on that sustainability. How can travel be transformative? How can travel not only beneficial for the traveler but also for the communities that the traveler is going to? And just being in that space really kind of started making the wheels turn a little bit. It kind of started to spark a little bit of that excitement that travel and the way I used to travel inspired me. Is how can I implement and be more of an intentional traveler, you know, mindful when I go to these places. Maybe I'm not looking at a place and trying to fit in 10 countries to visit, but I'm looking at one country and one city or one community and really go deep into that. And what are the questions I want to ask myself? You know, how do I want to reflect on those travels? Now, this is just an idea that I started leaning into more recently. It's definitely not something I have down packed, that I haven't even put into practice because I haven't been anywhere since I started volunteering. I'm just kind of leaning into that and learning as I go. When I say that I don't like to travel, it's very true. The way I used to do it doesn't bring me excitement. I don't like it and I don't enjoy it. This way of traveling and kind of this new space that I'm familiarizing myself with, if you will, does excite me a little bit. For me, it's a bit more. It's about being intentional and being respectful, and something that I always tried to do as best as I could when I traveled, but I didn't have always all the tools or the knowledge to do so. And so I'm really looking forward to, in the next year, redefining travel for myself, how that and my learning and how that can impact the videos and the content that I make and that I want to make moving forward. So going off the heels of this idea of redefining travel for myself, how I want that to feel like moving forward, I also started thinking about when my friend had mentioned to me, so you want to live abroad, because living abroad and traveling are different, which I agree, they are very different things, but like I mentioned, in my mind, the way I had it is I was going to live abroad continuously. I mentioned before, and I'll say it again, New York for me has never felt like home. It's more of this long layover, if you will, if you're talking in travel metaphors. It's just a place that connects these two places. It's a place where I can come and I can see my family, I can see my friends. In terms of home, this place that I feel connected to, that I feel myself, that I feel that I can build, New York is not that place for me. And so in my reflections, in writing and thinking about my travels and how they've impacted me and reflecting on that, I started to think about, what is home? Where is home? Where do I want that to be? Have I ever felt at home? Have I had that experience? What does that feel like? I had to kind of go in my mind and all of my memories and file through to see, was there ever a time that I felt home? Was there ever a time that I was equally excited to leave a place, but also equally excited to return to this place where I was like, I'm home. I can take off my backpack, unpack my things, and like, this is my home. The answer to that question is yes. It has been a place that I have left and return to, that I have felt equally excited to leave and return. And that does a lot for me, because I have always been the person who's been very excited to go since I was a little kid, but devastated when I had to return. I used to have family trips to Mexico. I would cry because I just didn't want to come back to New York. Like, no, I wanted to stay. And as I got older, it was still very true. Like, every time I went somewhere, I was just so sad to come back. When my friend asked me that question about living abroad, I said to her, the answer is yes, but I want something more permanent. I want a home base. I want a place where I can have my life there, my books, my things, my community, and build all of those things. So I started really thinking about this idea of a home base and entertaining this idea, which is something that I never really thought about, picking a place and making a life there. It's something that I always thought that I would entertain in my 30s, 30 or 35, not really in my late 20s. I really thought that I still had about like 5 more years of traveling like this left in me, and reflecting and everything that's happened in, you know, I think 2020 and just 2021 really made me think, and all of just my experiences of living abroad and traveling and seeing people's life and day-to-day life really started made me look inwards and reflect on, what is that home base for me? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And where is it that place for me? Have I felt it before? Am I searching for it still? That's something that makes me very excited to kind of play around with the idea, think about it a little bit more. So yeah, I'm excited for that. That's something that I've thought about recently. I write about, I meditate about, just to kind of, you know, I am changing as a person. I'm changing as a traveler. You know, I want to develop in other areas, like YouTube, like content creation, like filming different style videos. Also in the context of living abroad and travel, as I'm growing and my priorities start to change a little bit, you know, this idea now of home base has entered the conversation of not just living abroad, you know, here and there, but picking a place and making that place my home base, where I have a community, where I build a life, where I don't have to unpack and repack my entire life in 2 suitcases. I'm not ready to share all the details about that yet, or what that looks like, because I'm still very much processing that and just playing around with the idea of a home base and what that looks like and feels like for me. But when the time comes, I will be sharing that. This year isn't going to be that. So in chapter 3 of this mini series, I will be sharing some news, but that news is very separate from this idea of home base. And another question that kind of came up and that stemmed from this idea of home and the home base is not the physical home, but also the home that is, you know, your mind, your body, your spirit, you know, this person, this being that goes everywhere, that has been on all of these trips and all of these experiences. You know, how do I take care of her? Do I do a good job of doing that? What are the ways that I take care of my body, my mind, my spirit, you know, in these different places, in that lifestyle? Have I done that? And how do I do that moving forward, and how I want that to look like? Really focusing on the home that is my body and mind and spirit, and how I am taking care of it. What activities do I do to build that foundation within myself first? So when the day comes that I'm ready to have this home base and build that, I have a strong foundation in the sense of myself and me as a person. So for this year, what I'm really looking forward to is looking at that pie chart, distributing and redistributing what makes me feel balanced. Okay, what piece of that is travel and how I'm redefining that for myself, and what does that look like for me? What are the things that just bring me excitement? What are the areas that I want to put in there that are about taking care of my body or my mind? How can I grow as a professional? How can I be a better creator, a better storyteller, and lean more into that? What are the tools and what things are of service to that storytelling? That's what I'm looking at in my life. I want to move more towards a balanced lifestyle where it's not just this or that. There's a bit of everything, and understanding that sometimes you have to give and take to live a balanced life. So thank you, Kata. And if I have to lose a bit of that travel aspect to live a more balanced life, I am willing to do that, or have maybe that home base and that community. And maybe it's not this new adventure every single year in a different place, but it's the adventure that is having a home base and kind of seeing what the adventure is outside my door and the surrounding cities. Maybe that's what that looks like moving forward. And so I'm willing now to give and take a little bit of certain areas of my life to have this balance, as opposed to before, where I was very much travel is my life. That is it. No questions, and everything revolves around that. And if you're living that life, you know, and it works for you, then it works for you. I just think everybody's life is a bit different, and as you grow and as you gain more experience and as you learn, you start to realize that certain things become more of a priority. Maybe at the end of the year, I can do kind of like a follow-up video to this one specifically to see how I have redistributed my pie chart in my life, and kind of, you know, what's the next phase. I think that might be a cool idea. That's what we're working on moving forward, is finding that balance and redefining certain things for myself, what that looks like and feels like for me, and entertaining these new ideas and these new goals and dreams, and playing around a bit more of the idea of home and what that looks like moving forward. So I'm excited for that, and to kind of see what that leads to, where that takes me. I think we probably get the idea that I do know certain things and certain dreams that I have for myself, but there are some things that I'm still going to keep for myself, details and specifics because I want to safeguard them because they're so new in a sense that I want to see how I feel about certain things before I start sharing that with everybody else. As the year goes on and I get more comfortable and certain things become a bit more clear and how things will happen, I will share the process and the adventure that all of that is. Thank you so much for watching. Chapter 3 comes out very soon and I will see you as always in the next one. Ciao!